Hi, this is the introduction for my new continuing series of stories called Jesus Laughs in Galilee. The reason why I'm doing this introduction is because, wait a minute, let me get a little closer here. When you look at the playlist, I want you to be able to look at it and see all of the chapters. And you see an illustration for the chapter, each one. And the top of it is the introduction picture. I just want to point out over here that this is the only channel that has hand-painted real art as the thumbnail. I want you to look at the playlist and see it as beautiful. And that's like the book cover, right? You know? And so this will be just this is the introduction to my story, Jesus Laughs in Galilee. And this story would have been considered fine for children 125 years ago. Okay, it would be considered okay for adults too. Like someone like George A. MacDonald. Take a look at George A. MacDonald. If you look C.S. Lewis say, George A. MacDonald was maybe the progenitor of C.S. Lewis's fiction. You know, it's check it out, especially this book called Lilith. I really like that. And I mean, Lilith is not similar at all to this book. I was going to say it's very similar, but it has babies in it. It has it's this really wild spiritual tale with Dante-esque and biblical imagery. It's I got to read it again actually because I read it before I read Dante, and after reading Dante I recognized that there was imagery that I'll understand better when I read it, okay, when I reread it. But yeah, I say 125 years ago, like it would just be a novel. It you know, like this safe space age, it would consider it nightmare fuel, which is ridiculous. Like I've been told this, but I mean, chapter 1 is called Nativity, but then chapter 2 is called the Massacre of the Innocents. Okay, well that is the horror that's right in the Bible, and so like, do you call the Bible nightmare fuel? Of course you don't. I mean, or of course you would. Maybe that's why we're not allowed to read it, because it scares people, right? Anyway, everything's always watered down. The fairy tales. I wasn't exposed to the fairy tales. I mean, I was exposed to them. They were everywhere. Okay, well, but I grew up in the 70s, but they were everywhere. But they were watered down, and as an adult, I really became interested in fairy tales, and I wanted to read the uncensored ones, and I mean, it was I connected this all to dreams and medieval world with Renaissance art, and it kind of weirdly it all led to the Bible, like, because I was more really captivated by dreams and fairy tales and medieval and Renaissance art, and it all led to the Bible, and you kind of can't have any of those other pieces without the Bible. I mean, the subconscious mind, that's the link to it all. Stories, too many of them are becoming constructs nowadays that aren't allowed to deviate from it's like a construct. It's like there's this structure, someone that will watch a movie and that's deviating from the structure, and they'll say, why, it's unstructured. And it's like, okay, well that's a very it's the left brain. Okay, the left brain is the structure part. The left brain is the same thing as Nietzsche's Apollonian, and right brain is the Dionysian. But I'm not going to name my own neurology after Greek gods, lest they become lest they become my power. I'll say, the right side of the brain. Okay, access to the subconscious dream world is on the right. The clever structuring ability to shape the story is on the left. And so ideally what you want to do is have the balance. You want to have both sides, right? But the left side, I mean, I don't want to repeat this story so much because I've said this before, but the right side can draw the whole picture, but the left side can only draw half the picture. And, that's enough I'm going to say about that right now. Okay, making a story needs the balanced brain. Imagine lying, okay? Everybody lies. So I don't want to say everybody lies. Everybody sins kind of thing. Like, of course, like everybody lies. Like everybody's made a lie. That's a story, okay? Everybody's dreamed. Like, that's a story. We all dream, and, everybody has lied. And everybody can write. So, and you write your own world. You write your own future. And you write to see if you have free will. You write your own life to see if you have free will, and you write your own thoughts. If you have sentience, the more sentience you have, the more free will you have. Okay, like you have to have a weak sentience to not believe in free will. It's crazy. And once you're doing something imaginative and creative, you can't believe we have no free will. Okay, that's left brain. That's left brain thinking. Okay, it's because once you're open to the right brain, you see the universe, you see the collective, you see the fountain, you see the subconscious. Okay, I had a friend that was a left brain type that wanted to be a writer, but his access to the right side of the brain was closed off psychologically, I believe. So his scripts read it's like he taught script writing and stuff like that, but he never he was all structure, right? And the odd thing is, and this is the important part, his dreams didn't even seem connected to the right side of the brain. His subconsciousness isn't connected to the right side. It seemed it's like, here's a conversation. He said to me once, I dreamed about you last night. And so I said, I don't want to denigrate him. I'm not denigrating him. Like you could, he'd be fine with me saying this because like if I was still his friend, it's I have to say this, it's still my friend, because, I don't know, Canada's a cult, like he canceled me. Or what is it when people won't talk to you anymore because of their political beliefs? Their political beliefs are somehow make them think that everybody that doesn't live in just the inner core of the city is evil. Okay, so anyway, he was making a comedy show with another friend of mine, and this friend was producing, and so you're producing a comedy show, and he's putting all his work into it, and so I told him not to make it woke, and it's over here at this point. Like, I'm not sure if I'm going to put any pictures on this video. I probably won't, but if I do, I'm going to draw some weenies. Some anthropomorphic weenies, because I hate being canceled by friends. I'm afraid to talk to old friends because you're going to say the wrong thing and they're going to just hate you because like they think you're a hater. Weirdly, they are the hateful one, and I'm just like, hey, everybody can have an opinion, and it's like, it's ridiculous. Anyway, like, all I'm saying is like, I'm speaking about this, so I'm not going to have any compunctions about like revealing some personal information about a friend that unceremoniously dumped me for having opinions. And my opinion was just trying to help him. I said, don't make it woke, because people don't like that anymore. And I didn't know he was woke, but it makes sense that he was woke now. And it's weird because another friend had this thing, like, and it was like almost like a cult, like a long time ago. It was this pyramid scheme, and I thought like, oh, this, like he's going to be the one friend that's not going to, fall for it. And then it was like, it just started to be like the whole friend group was this cult of this pyramid group. And anyway, we moved at that point, but it was really weird. It's like the pod people take over in Canada. Anyway, I'm friends with everybody. I'm like, hey, come on over. Like, like, let's talk. This guy went to my wedding. He went to my wedding. He took a plane to my wedding. We used to visit each other. Like, I lived across the other side of the country, and we'd still see each other for lunch like once a year or so, and I said, "Hey, don't make it woke," and that's awful, Like, and then, well, I mean, I said, a full disclosure, I said, even if you tweak that a little bit and offend a few people, like that usually will, get people laughing a little harder, and yeah, he thinks, no, this is the way people think. It's like, but see, like, he didn't have the daringness to say, no, this is the way I think, Michael. I think this way. It was like he thought that people thought that way. So I didn't even know he was woke. And so I said, like, don't make it woke. I thought that he thought like, oh, woke was this thing that we just gotta, it's the current ideology that's controlling our ability to have certain jobs. And this is just like a few sentences on Messenger. Yeah, I'm not his friend anymore because he doesn't have the strength to put up with my negativity. That's what he called it, my negativity. Yeah, this was just before Trump was reelected. So woke people thought that they were successful in making everyone believe that what they believed, somehow it was unreasonable. It was unreasonable not to think like, oh, I'm taking it up. If you don't take it up, like a fanatic, somehow you're evil. That's what they believed, or else we're socially and professionally rejected, but in a passive aggressive way. That's the whole thing. It's all in a passive aggressive way. Like, for example, I used to enter art contests. I would win. Lots of times I designed the Vancouver soccer team's logo. If I'm doing pictures, I'll show you the photo. It was in the newspaper. And art contests, I used to win the odd art contest, okay? And I was entering every single one of them. And then all of a sudden, like they used to be a way to get a career. Like you read certain artists and it's like, oh, that's what made them, that's what opened the door. You're supposed to get that door to open, right? And art contests always used to be a way to get that career, to get the door open for someone that wants to, for people with no connections. So much of it is connections, right? So, but if you don't have connections, you win through a contest, right? So those doors are closed. Art contests and awards are an extension of the whole. The awards are an extension of the whole, like, art contests, and it's kind of like built into the DNA of of art. Like once it like becomes a culture, and then political correctness took over, and the arts had contests. The arts, like businesses and like whatever, like when they wanted to solicit the public for something, it was, instead of everybody, it was all segregated, okay? And it was this type of person. Oh, there's a contest for that type of person, and it everybody was included except for white males. I wasn't invited to these contests anymore, and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that as an example of the passive aggressive tactic. It's like, unless you, and I mean, this isn't a thing where I could even like, but there was a time when I was like, darn, I wish I was GAY, because like there's like, you could, if I was an artist and I was GAY, I would have like been able to be in like all sorts of like things that would help me. And I lost a really good friend once because I said something about like there's no white privilege in Canada, and then as just like I tend to like just come up with examples and ways because I'm always like that. And anyway, I said that if I was a native indigenous person, there'd probably be a museum. And it's true that like look at like how much I have on just on YouTube alone on my two channels, and like there'd be a museum if there was anybody like that that was like me. And it's like I'm not bragging there. I'm not trying to like say anything. It's just like I'm just saying you can't you get all the decks stacked against you, and what happens is that makes you stronger, really, right? That makes you stronger. Everybody else, they just like you look at a comic and you just do one little tiny thing and you never do the whole. Okay, so when they kick you out of their club, you have to be stronger because you can't play the game by yourself unless you do everybody else's job. You know. So anyway, it's so passive aggressive, like I say. Yeah. They aren't going to stop me. They're not going to stop me. I think maybe I'm secretly shadow banned even on this channel. Like I could have the government against me because it's weird. I did a Facebook. I said to Facebook. Somehow like just old poems are enough to set off like algorithms, like warning signs because old poetry, old literature. It's like some sort of. I think there's some kind of algorithm secret. I don't know, but anyway, I have like 3 subscribers and 1 big hater, and it's just like okay, well that's weird. But anyway, I'm just gonna keep it up because they haven't stopped me. It's taken me decades, and well, yeah, one guy that some dude that hates me. That's not gonna. It's gonna stop me. I'm just gonna keep it up. That's how ridiculous this is. I don't let it get me down. Instead, it makes me write stories people in the club aren't allowed to write. And this is the type of story that could have been written in 1890 by George A. MacDonald. I couldn't draw this story as a comic, as you like. I put it on YouTube because I mean it's a story about 2 talking babies, okay? And as soon as you do a drawing or any kind of visual, they take away the comments, and even though I only have a hater, although they'll stop him from commenting. It's fine, whatever. Yeah, it's if you have kids, they stop the comments and everything, and then they want to show it only to kids, and it's this isn't. I mean, I think it's fine for kids, but it's a novel. It's something that's like it's a story that story that people should be writing. I mean, if you do something sincere and innocent, it's fodder for perverts in our culture, okay? But does that mean that baby stories are only for babies? And that's what it amounts to. That's what it amounts to. Kid stories are only for kids. Our world has become that because of the lowest common denominator. I said this is a novel more for the 19th century reader than 2025, but I'm not doing pastiche. This isn't pastiche. It's just we live in an unenchanted like world. We live in an atheistic world. We live in and so it's like how many people want a story about, that's like about 2 kids running parallel to the Gospels, and it's called Jesus Laughs. Basically, Jesus laughs. Oh, I want to see Jesus laugh. Like, that's it's. I mean, this would have really played well in the 19th century. That's my point. Modernity hates innocence. I guess people will think this is cringe. Maybe I don't know. I am just writing sincerely. William Golding, like the guy that wrote Lord of the Flies. That was a great book. Great book. He wrote about kids to get like, the business out of the story. You wanted to write about people without that. I'm not saying what I'm writing is as good as The Lord of the Flies, but I aspire to write something great. Maybe the YA label ruined everything. People used to read classics first, and then the YA label. And so why should kids read, like, I mean, once you finish off with like little kids books, like you should be able to go to Huck Finn and I don't know, stuff that's there's classics that are easier, and then go to better classics or new classics, but why baby walk with YA? I don't know. I don't like editors. It's YA is about editors. It's like let's shape your novel into this category. I don't mean I hate editors like people, like they're probably wonderful people and they probably know they're structure people. Okay, they don't write from their heart. They write from their left side of their brain, but they know what works. They know what works, and they know and knowing what works is knowing one paradigm. It's narrowing the tunnel. But what if we made all sorts of tunnels and then we found out other ways that worked, or we found out that we were only used to one way. It's like, someone that listens to heavy metal and that's all they could listen to is heavy metal and they can't hear anything. And then they listen to the Beatles and they're, what is this? This is terrible. And they'll say the Beatles, or you play them Frank Sinatra, you play them Bach, and they're just, this is awful. And you're, because they're in a tunnel. I don't mean all metal fans, but if you're only listening to metal, you're in a tunnel. You're in a tunnel. And everybody, like, so many people do that. They apparently they listen to music at there's a peak time when people listen to music, and then they listen to that music for the rest of their lives, or that style of music for the rest of their lives. And a way where you could keep growing as a person is to keep being open to different musical forms, right? But these tunnels, like, let's not all be in this tunnel. Okay, we had all these gatekeeping mechanisms to keep us inside of the tunnel. I think that's what woke was ultimately, is just a tunnel. It's a tunnel. You have to be this way, or you have to be in this tunnel, and if you're outside of the tunnel, you hate. A mechanism to control minds into one narrow tunnel. It's an odd irony how close-minded our arts and entertainment world has become. I always thought this imagination was given to us to expand our minds, and then later I realized that it's where we're supposed to meet God, and of course to expand our minds. To meet God is when we have to expand our minds. Where do we meet God? What do you do when you pray? You use your imagination to pray. And if you don't use your imagination to pray, that's okay. Like if you don't have an imagination and you just go through the prayer, it's not your work, it's God's work. So, it's not about your ability to touch God and see God. That's not what it is. But that ability is on the right side of the mind, okay? That is the imagination. And I'm not saying you need the imagination, but the enchanted mind. And if we enchant all minds, they will be more spiritual, okay? And if minds aren't enchanted, it's only the really, I don't want to say everybody like is really good just because they pick goodness, but like if you're enchanted, like you realize, God exists, and then that's the thing that gets you to be better, okay? But if like you don't even need the enchantment of belief in God, and you just say, okay, I'm just gonna believing in God is just the most logical thing to do, and okay, I don't want to argue with that. Like, that's good too. But logic doesn't change hearts like art and literature and poetry and song does, okay? And if we outsource that to AI and computers, we're going to really lose control of our own selves, really. because the imagination is used to limit us now. Because, I mean, like Plato says, those who control the stories control the world. People, they blindly accept corporate art. Corporate art. Every movie is really corporate art. It's sometimes something sneaks out and it's like something wonderful, you know? It's wonderful. Like every year we do get a masterpiece movie, I think, somewhere. Somewhere. It's usually an art movie. It's really like it's almost never a mainstream movie now. For example, most comics were made by a team of people in an assembly line process. Okay, like, and you don't get the masterpiece that way. That's corporate art. Okay, it's every once in a while you get The Godfather. Every once in a while you get Mulholland Drive. You know, but comic art, people wonder, oh, why is comic art falling? Why is comic art falling? Well, it's because it's a simulacrum. It's a simulacrum of a simulacrum of simulacrum of a simulacrum of a simulacrum. I love Jack Kirby, okay? I love Jack Kirby. I look at his art and I think he's like Picasso. I think he's like Rembrandt. I think he's like really something special. Okay, but now look at comic art. Look at comic book art, and it's influenced by art that is influenced by art, that is influenced by art, that is influenced by art, that is copied off of art, that is influenced by Jack Kirby. Okay, so if, like, I love Jack Kirby, but to be influenced by people that are influenced by influenced, like it's just like it's a mirror looking upon another mirror and saying, hey, look at one of those little things, and that's me. You know, like this is why comics are failing. Manga art is like that too. It's Japanese. It's a very conformist culture. So every like all the faces, they kind of conform with each other, and it's like a stamp, you know. Tuk, 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 you know. I love like I'm not putting down manga, but it's like I love that Spiral guy, the guy that does spirals, that horror manga guy. But there is a sameness to the art, and it tells a story. I'm not putting down manga. I'm just saying, like, you know, every panel isn't a piece of art. Okay, and there are different levels of art where you're doing that, and it's just like, oh, look at these 2 pages are just like, you know, that's like, but what if every panel is a great piece of art? Okay, that's what I aspire to, and that's my favorite type of comics, where every panel is just absolute beauty. The art, but the beauty is in the sequential nature. And you look at a whole page, and when you look at a whole page and you see the sequential, you don't see one drawing. You see how they all interact and form time. The artist has to draw real life, or their art doesn't connect with their own dream world. Okay, if everything is a copy of 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 Kirby, then it's Kirby's dreams. You're analyzing your own dream world, and in our dream world we have a connective tissue that is universal. Okay, and that's hopefully what we aim for. I want my stories to be understood by everyone, and I want to be like, the whole thing is. Whoops! I hit it with my elbow. The whole thing is, what was I saying? The whole thing is like what was I saying? The whole thing is oh yeah. I want my stuff to be understood by people, and the whole point is you don't go, oh, I want to sell out. What you do is you try to the search for more universality is really the search for truth. Okay, because the universality is getting away from just your own individual ticks. Like, if it's all about your own individual ticks, it's not really about truth. And that's what people say, it's personal. Like, you know, everything is encouraged to be personal, to take us away from that feeling that that's what we're trying to do is get the truth. You know, and this is why comics are failing, because they're just they're repeating the same story over and over and over and over and over. And it's power fantasies, power fantasies. And I like the power fantasy as much as the next person, but if everything is, the left brain can't see the soul. Power. The left brain is the power center, actually. Through art, you can see the soul, and so, imagine art just about power. That's a strange entrance, and like I'm talking about my friend that didn't that would dream like about like lineups and in real time and stuff like that, line up in real time, and he's very left brain, and so like his dream would, and it's funny, like that's it's kind of what like a lot of art has turned out to be, because it's artists aren't people that work with their hands a lot of times anymore. They're people like it's the dumb rich kid, and he's not like a born artist, but he, like the dumb rich kid, goes into art, and the smart brothers and sisters become darker doctors and stuff like that. Maybe I mean I don't want to insult all art students, but it's kind of stupid, because it's, why do you need to go to school to do art? It's just practice. That's really that's all you have to do to be art, is like look at other art, and not as to copy it, but look at it to see the what makes it excellent, and the principles of design, and practice and look at life. And you don't need teachers, you don't need school for art. Learn how to see the soul through art. An artist, you can only draw your personality. Like as an artist, if you're drawing honestly, you could see the person, you could see their soul. But most artists draw in an enforced style, like drawing for a cartoon show. Okay, that's an enforced style. If you didn't design your own style that you draw in, that's an enforced style. That doesn't reflect your soul. But I mean, sometimes someone could be like so into an enforced soul, that like an enforced style, and like, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but like the whole thing is the whole culture drawing the same art style. That might be totally valid for Japan too, because they have a unit culture and they have a collective soul. Okay, and I don't like with Japan, like it's amazing, Okay, we've in Western culture, we've lost our cultural souls. Okay, myself, I'm Ukrainian, and I lost my cultural soul when I was a kid in the '70s. My grandparents, my uncles, like they all said right to me, "You're not Ukrainian if you don't speak my language." And I wasn't able to learn the language. I would ask my grandparents, Baba, tell me, like, and no, and she would like, and then we'd do it for 5 minutes, and then she'd say, "Oh, it's good enough." We'd go on, and it's okay. So I lost my cultural soul. Like, it always seemed like, people hold on to a shallow element of it, and it's no fun to point out that it's a shallow element, but really that's how changeable we are, because like a cultural soul makes you unchangeable. Okay, and it glues the people together in some form, like manga is their art, and that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But in the individual West, like we under the Christian way of thinking. I say Christian because like everybody, like, I don't want just Christians listening. It's like, yeah, like it's like, it's the Christian way though is same as the liberal way. We're all individuals under God, and if you're a liberal and atheist, you still, like, even what's his name, like that the super famous atheist, he calls himself a cultural Christian now, because Christian, he realizes, oh, Christianity is where the concept of individuality was carried on in our culture, and all the other religions are actually anti-individual religions that actually like seem to want a hive culture. Huh. or and sometimes even a hive mind, a literal hive mind after his death. Okay, um, and so like in Christianity, like Christians were the first ones that came out with art galleries in the 1700s. Okay, and it was an outreach of the idea that wow, every artist has their own individual style. Even if they're like super close to each other, you can still see their personalities in it. And that's what I mean too. If you're drawing it in a forced style where you can't tell the difference between two people that draw that same style, like for instance, Karl Barks. Okay, I can tell. Like if you show me Donald Duck, I can tell if it's Karl Barks. I can tell if it's like, and somebody else might do a really good job, but I can tell if it's Karl Barks. Okay, and he was just drawing the same. Like he wasn't doing anything unique. Like there was nothing he wasn't trying to. But you see Karl Barks even in that enforced style. Okay, so that's what I mean, like exceptions to everything and anything I say, like there's going to be an exception to when we're talking to like about art, because rules are made to be broken, right? I mean, because we're not talking morals. I'm not talking moral rules are made to be broken. It's art is a art enters the moral realm, but I'm not talking about those rules. There are two ways for an artist to reflect their soul in art, and the first one is to be excellent. And if you're really, really, really good, like far beyond 10,000 hours of honest work, meaning not drawing in an enforced style, unless you're like Karl Bark or like other, like they're rare people that can, they're just like somehow the force of their personality breaks through the enforced style. Um, or the other way is to draw like a child. That's it, to draw like a child. Okay, so if you can't draw at all, like in your say you don't want to, you spend like 10,000 hours of honest work drawing and drawing and drawing to get your soul into it, because like a lot of beginning work just all looks the same, really, like it because no one's able to really transmit their soul into the art. Okay, but if you, then here's the thing, and this is why you should try to like enter into Picasso, enter into liking Picasso, um, and because you look at Picasso, everybody thinks Picasso is ugly. I mean, he's like a gateway into this, into understanding how the art of a child can be beautiful. And like I said in my Picasso video, um, art, like beautiful art from a child isn't everybody. Picasso was wrong. Picasso said every artist, like every child is an artist, and it's not true. Um, Only some children are artists, and once you realize that, like Picasso's BS there, like once you realize and you realize there's good children's art and bad children's art, and most of it isn't good, and that there is actually, then you realize that there is a way to draw like a child that is good. Okay, if all children's art is the same, and that's Picasso's goofy ideology that wasn't meshed with his like. And so when he says something like that, I think he's just talking his political ideology rather than talking from anywhere from truth, because there are kids that don't like drawing. Like there are kids that like draw like like really bad, and they're just like, here's the house over here, here's the sun way over there, and here's the like. And then there are kids that just like, they're almost abstract, but they're just wow. There's these patterns they're doing, and it's amazing. And once you could see that, and like appreciating children's art more than Picasso, like kind of thing, I would say, even like if you can understand like which, like if you're a parent and you look at like a classroom of art. They used to let us in schools before. Now they don't let parents in schools here. But if you're able to, and you get to see the children's art, and you could do this, then you could do it yourself and then draw like a child and access the right side of the brain, okay? And like left brain art style is different. Okay, here's the left brain art style. Is like look at the progress of the superhero's cape. If I have time, I'll put like some pictures of the superhero cape, and it's but look at it yourself. Like it's like look at the 1940s art, and the cape is a very like a drab affair. It's just like there's a cape. Like look at Batman's cape, and now and look at like every decade's cape, and the cape that the art for the cape is this like a hive mind working on making the most awesome superhero. And that's awesome, but it's not going to access the soul. Like the best way to access the soul is to look at real life and find beauty in this real world. And that's the problem. That's the problem. That's why they're making the world ugliest, so that we don't access the soul. Do you understand? Like the more beauty you find, the more attached to your soul you are. The more you access it, the more you see it. But if they make the world ugly, you can't see it. I went to say I was in Holland, and I was realizing this. There's nowhere that isn't beautiful. Like, and you could test this as an artist so easily just by, okay, I'll draw there, I'll draw there, I'll draw there, I'll draw there, I'll draw there. And in Canada, you really have to look. And it's, you don't have to look though, because once you hit a certain point, you can make beauty out of anything. You could just look at like this desk and just make it beautiful. Okay. And that's like the thing about like Karl Barks drawing the duck, that in exactly the same way as everybody else, but I look at his and I could see him, and I could see there's beautiful, like he loves that duck, and he's built a whole world out of that duck. He's the guy that came up with all the ideas of Donald Duck. The animators just had Donald Duck as this quack 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 guy that would just sort of hit people in the head. Anyway, so I'm not knocking the cape, but I'm just saying that it's cool. I like it too. I'm not saying this like corporate hive mind art styles always have to suck. Not at all. When my kids grew up, I let them watch SpongeBob and Adventure Time. Not so many of the other shows I thought they were just. I didn't know anything about politics in it, but I just like looked at shows like Dora, and I thought, well, like why are they teaching? Like, why are they teaching? Like, instead, they should tell a story. A story has its own wisdom, okay? So I want my kids to have a story. Though there's some kind of secret wisdom behind a story. I don't want like these people teaching my kids, because then you don't know what they're teaching every time, right? And just give a story. But it's Adventure Time was really great, and SpongeBob was really great. SpongeBob, they were just trying to entertain the kids, and it was funny because they were trying to tell us always, SpongeBob is bad for kids. It's bad for kids. It's going to make them like, and it's like, okay, well, that's the only one that wasn't trying to teach them something, huh? And then I would say like, well, Dora is so drab and boring, and the other parents would say, yes, but they learn Spanish, and it's like, do they? They learn one word every time. Do they carry on that knowledge? And at the end of watching a year of Dora, they know Spanish? Like, is that how it works? Anyway, okay. Anyway, that's the thing, is we outsource the creativity. Okay, there's story and creativity, and everybody sees the left brain function. The left brain function is language, okay? And so everybody was like, all the parents, like, were just, learn Spanish. And so I would have this little debate with the other parents. And so it's like, I saw, like, this is the attitude of society to art. They don't see the good of a story. And so when the person grows up, then they fall prey to stories, and because stories can manipulate them, and they're kind of naive about stories because they were taught that stories were just vehicles to teach left brain activity. And what I'm talking about is art and the access to the soul. AI art will master cape drawing aesthetics. Okay, but they won't master what I'm talking about. They can't even touch what I'm talking about. But will people even have the sensitivity to see this? And are we creating Morlocks this way? Is this how we create Morlocks? Is this the dividing line between the Morlocks and the people that are going to have full sentience? The Morlocks are from like the Time Machine, H.G. Wells, and you go into the future, and in the future there are these people that are just it's like they chose stupidity. And H.G. Wells was like an early elite, like planner, and that's was the original plan, was that we're going to have Morlocks. And so if you look at art and you don't care, you just only care about left brain functioning, well, AI is and computer is going to like fulfill all of the left brain functions, the visual and like working with your hand, that's actually more right brain. So it's like everybody's just valuing that, and then we're forgetting about, like the AI will be able to draw a whole episode of SpongeBob, but it can't create you. It can't create from cloth. When you draw from the soul, like it's like you're mimicking God in some way. I'm not like saying like, oh, this is like a grand delusion. You're like God, like, but you could feel Gnostic about it, I guess. But it's like, that it is one of the imitations of God to create. Okay, so when you draw from the soul, we are the creation, like a grand creation of God. And so we make a grand creation of the soul. When you draw from the soul, the human soul, you have the power to create without deriving. Our culture is so decadent. Many people believe all creativity comes from derivation. And I've argued with people that have said that, that you can't come up with something original. And I guarantee to you that we can be original. And we're just so stuck in these like circle loops that people, like, when they see something original, and a lot of times like there's this decadence that you like, where it's just like, oh, original is just more decadence and more abstract. And abstract art is good too, but like I'm not one of those people that are like, oh, abstract is all a hoax. But most of it's a hoax. Most of it is just money printing, right? It's a hoax. Like fine art world is a hoax. You can see, just look at my art and say, can anybody in fine art draw? There was one guy that used to be able to draw really nicely. Like, look at him, like what's his name? Curran, Currin. James Curran. I can't remember his name, but it really beautiful, wonderful, kind of similar to my art in a way, because it's people. Like you could see that he draws people out in the world, like I do, and so like and it's art where it's like people just laughing, and this is one of the things I love. Like old Dutch art, they would have people just laughing and drinking and enjoying themselves at the table, So this guy's carrying on that sort of thing too. Just regular people. This is the good life, not the good life like this is the elite life, but this is, and he's also heavily influenced by the Renaissance. And so, wow, this guy's really wonderful. But then all of a sudden, it's like he wasn't allowed to. Like this is I don't want to be like the secret forces, but all of a sudden, like there's one artist that's really amazing, and everybody else is abstract and just doing goofy stuff. And there's one guy that's amazing, and so what does he do? Now it's just all adult film. Adult with the X, film stills, and what he does is he copies them, but he copies them with soul, like he really does. Like he looks at them and they're beautiful, but they're completely morally decadent. Like his art style isn't decadent because he's so skilled. But it's like said to him, like this, I don't know, like I'm just guessing here. I'm just using my imagination here, that they said to him, if you want to continue to be selling your paintings for amazing amounts of money, then you basically have to do something so degenerate that it redeems your excessive talent and beauty. And so, yeah, and so it's really weird. Like he was really good. And then I think still, it's really shocking. Like his wife's, genitalia, um, uh, he paint like this really really clear painting, like in the Renaissance style, like, and it's like a big close up of her, his wife's, you know what, like right in front, and you see her face in the background, and um that's it's really really strange in the fine art world. Anyway, like all I'm like, I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Anyway, I love the way people draw, because you can see their souls in the paintings, and you don't have to be like, 10,000 hours of work. Like I love looking at like just the way other people draw other people, and the more confidence they could do. And I mean, that's why it's so valuable looking at kids art, or like Picasso's art, like, is a good gateway. I'm trying to tell people, like, and not so you could be creative, like just so you could access your right side of your mind, not so you could like sell them or anything, just so you could access them, just to help you imagine. You could see Picasso's souls in his paintings that a child could have drawn. I copied some Picasso art to feel Picasso, like not so I could like feel my soul, but so I can feel Picasso's. So I drew in my own style, trying to draw in Picasso's style in the next panels. And, like, and I was drawing them honestly. So I just kind of like, I draw with cartoon conventions, like cartoon noses or big feet. And my ideal of beauty is the Renaissance art. I can draw in this style and make it sincere. But if it's a uniform look, nah. You need the free will to make it a work of the soul. Unless you get this really good job like Karl Barks. Like, imagine just having a job where it's just, write Donald Duck. And I mean, before Donald Duck was created, here's this duck, and just do whatever you want with it. And like, and it was his world that he made. And it's just, yeah, of course he loved drawing in that style, because he completely remade the world. So it became like, he owned it. He owned it, right? I feel free to do something totally not mainstream and not influenced by anything. And that's like, how could I not have free will? I say it's funny, because like people believe that, like 50% of people believe that you don't have free will. I say an 1890s reader would have liked this story that this is an introduction for. I'm just pontificating, but this is all introduction for my story, Jesus Laughs in Galilee. There's no tale like it anywhere. I say 1890s, but there's no tale like it anywhere. And just like my other one, Nucky Gulliver's Travels, there's no other tale like it. And that's what I'm trying to write, is stories that there's nothing else like it. There is nothing else like it. And it has to come from some deep place inside of me. And I want to write fun stuff where it doesn't come from some deep place, and it doesn't all have to come from some deep place inside of me. But I don't want I don't want to write anything that would pass a sensitivity reader. I don't want to offend anyone. I'm not trying to offend anyone. But if you don't write something, like, everybody's been like so socially, and I don't mean everybody, but our whole society has had sensitivity readers gatekeeping everything, and editors and everybody gatekept to get in to be gatekept for the past 20 years intensely, like, well, the last 15 years intensely, but yeah, it's the more you go back, I guess all the way to the war, really. The last, like the World War II, really, that's when everything kind of became, and you could look back and say, oh, I would have really fit in with that decade and that decade, but then, like, you have to fit in right at that time, right? Like I say, I don't want to offend anybody. I just, like, there's this tunnel, and it's a social engineering force, and it's not about human soul and human creativity, and so I reject the tunnel. I reject it. And I don't mean that everything in the tunnel sucks. I love things inside of the tunnel sometimes. What's that one about, like that movie? There's a masterpiece I watched a little while ago. It's about, like, it's a girl that's I should do a video on it, actually, because there's two different ways to interpret it. She has, like, Demi Moore was in it, and anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a masterpiece. David Lynch's death was a great loss. Like, this is where the art is. I think, like, the biggest art is the movies, but that's a problem, because it's a moving image, and the movies consume the imagination. So unless you think about the movie after, it's really, you're just watching something, and if you watch something, like anything, like, say you watch something amazing, like, oh wow, I saw this today. I was at a bus stop and I saw this drama. Well, if it's only when you think later, when you imagine about it later, and movies like that too, right? Um, yeah, I'm excited for Tarantino's last movie. There's a handful of directors that are really great, but artists, like I said, that Curran guy is really great, and now he's just, like, really just, like, they're stills from old adult films from the 70s, and he just makes beautiful copies of them, and so it's not like a photographic copy. It's like he like I say, when you draw with a soul, you exaggerate certain things. You don't do it through a photograph. You copy the human. This is beyond, is ineffable what I'm trying to express. I'm going to stop it. 100 years ago, our labels at a grocery store were so beautiful. Everything was beautiful, and, like I'm saying, like, this is art that's just, like, enforced art. Advertising is the most enforced art, but if you look at the labels from 100 years ago, they were absolutely beautiful, hand painted typography. Like, reproduced, mass reproduction, but, like, it's if you looked at the illustrations, they were so beautiful. Every label and piece of graphic design was beautiful. Like, all you had to do is walk in a grocery store, and the amazing human created beauty. I used to go to this collector's place and look at his thousands of product packages and graphic design he had from the 1930s, from before the 1930s. He had so much. It was so awesome. He was just around the corner in the 90s where I lived. I looked after these people that were mentally handicapped, and it was kind of an awful place. But just around the corner was they called himself the Advertising Museum, and he was just a real estate guy. And anyway, he had this house of it was just a shack, and it was pretty big, and it was just full of just old packages and stuff, and it was more beautiful, like, than like the galleries I go to is so amazing. Like, that place should have been kept, but I know his son would have just sold everything on eBay, and it's kind of too bad. But I can't describe the beauty. But you could look at just packages from the 1920s, and you'll see what I mean. And just imagine a whole place where they have all the packages and calendars and all sorts of stuff, and every package had the touch of the human soul, which also has the touch of God. Now our package designs are soulless. People don't realize how profoundly it changed us to have our whole world of created without soul products. Well, I can't even say that because like if you go to Europe, like there's more like beauty in their packages than in Canada. We have the ugliest ones because we have to have two, by law we have to have two languages on a package, so it just floods it with all this text, and it makes everything uglier, and people think, oh well, who cares, like everything, we're in an info world. And so Canada became like socially engineering info minds that way, right? It's like when you make everything, you're not making it on purpose ugly. You just don't consider beauty. And in the past, people couldn't build a chair in the past without some sort of decoration. And everything was beautiful. Everything. Look at old radios and toasters, or smash a wall. Like if I draw a smashed wall, okay, and I draw a smashed wall from the 1920s, and the way they built the houses, the old houses, the smash actually, like with the paint peeled off and the lines, the parallel lines, it actually, there's a beauty to it. Where if you smash a wall today in the gyprock, there's no beauty to the smashed wall. Where the old place, even if you started destroying it, it looked beautiful. The mustache man of Germany. I shouldn't mention him. This is weird, but he liked he had illustrators draw a whole bunch of ruined remains of his civilization 1,000 years after its destruction, and I guess influenced by the beauty of the Roman ruins, and that's all I meant. Like it's just a fun fact around it that that it shouldn't say it's people are so psychotic around that guy. It's like you can't say fun fact around that guy because it's like, oh, does he like him? Like people are just deranged nowadays. But no, it's that's how crazy it is that like the Roman ruins are so beautiful, and they could be almost all destructed, like destroyed, and it's still beautiful. Like you can get like anything from the past and destroy it, and it's more beautiful than something intact from today that's made. That really says something about our day and age. People wonder why the world became ugly, and it's because we see that these left brain alternatives as right. Like I say, like a package with twice as much type, that was seen as right and not damaging our culture. Of course it damaged our culture because it made every package look ugly. And like I just told you, that every package was beautiful. Like I'm talking beautiful, like to go to like the most beautiful art galleries and just walking around in a grocery store. And we don't get that memory anymore. That's like the beauty that was everywhere. And in that beauty, it's touched by the soul, and touched by the soul is touched by God. And I'm repeating that, but because it's so important, we accepted the soulless alternative. Now the last hand mass product of the soul is art. Art is the last standing product of the soul. Will people accept AI art? The world will become uglier in ways that we can't imagine if we pick AI art over human art. It's like we can't even see the soul anymore. Then, if you look at AI art and think that it's the same as, like, you can't, like, you trust that we have a soul, but you don't see the it's like indisputable truth, like truth, like it's indisputable proof. It's like oh gosh, this is so hard to explain because I know this just sounds crazy to people, but just look at art and look at all the different styles of art, okay? We could all look at the same image, and it's like if our souls are put right into like expressing that image, all of us are expressing our souls in a completely unique way that making food or like, any other job or any other kind of like doing something doesn't quite approach. The world will become uglier and we'll be trapped in our current paradigm if AIR wins. With like everything will be a loop. Think of my tunnel analogy. People like me break us out of that mental tunnel. There are very few artists outside of the tunnel. Writers are only born out of the tunnel if they aren't taken in. Lots of people have been excluded, ironically. That's the good news. Because of inclusion, that's the other irony. It's they're excluded because of inclusion, but their exclusion puts them outside of the tunnel, and there's a new world that we don't quite know what it's going to be, but the people that are going to be the visionaries are outside of the tunnel. The mainstream is trying to suck you into a regurgitating vortex of stuff that fits in categories. Our society is autistic, but enough talking about the neurological future of our species. Why this story? Jesus wept. Jesus wept. If you read the Bible, you'll see Jesus wept a lot. But I remember once talking to a dear old friend that is actually, how do I say it? So, right now, did Jesus ever laugh? Of course he laughed. Of course he laughed. Yeah, of course he laughed. I'm not showing a lot of Jesus in my story, even though it's called Jesus Laughed in Galilee. It's not like Ben-Hur at all. It's not like Ben-Hur at all. But maybe not treading too softly, because I do have scenes with him, but the story follows Jehu and Martha. Like, how Ben-Hur is about Jesus, but it's about Ben-Hur. And that's what I'm doing. This story is about Jehu and Martha, or like Brian. Well, Brian, Life of Brian. It's kind of not really. Well, it is about Jesus too, but it's about people in those days and the Romans. But Life of Brian is just like a parody of Ben-Hur and that sort of movie where you're doing something in parallel to the Gospels. If I'm following a convention, it's that convention. But maybe the convention is born from a reluctance to write scenes with Jesus. These scenes have to be very limited, or I'm running the danger of saying something false about Jesus. Nobody writes these parallel to Jesus stories anymore, it seems. So I'm going to, and it's not why I did. It's just I love. I know it's just a good form, and mine's more like a fairy tale anyway. It's not like Ben-Hur and stuff like that. Right off the bat, you'll see it's more like a fairy tale. But it's in that kind of structural way. Maybe most of my stuff is kind of like a fairy tale. I have a 35-page comic book story that will be in El Shaddai 3 that's really, really cool. It's very much a fairy tale that has never been written before. And I always think like, there were a whole bunch of fairy tales that were never recorded because they only recorded the ones that they thought were okay for kids. And a lot of the ones people just, no, we're not going to get this written down. They thought it was bad taste to write them down for posterity, and it's kind of too bad. But but not that I drew, like, not that I did a naughty fairy tale, but maybe this one taps into some of the awful things happening in the world right now in a subconscious way where it won't even be recognized by people. But yeah. Anyway, my the El Shaddai 3 is going to be really good. I was going to say some other title, but because I have other titles that I'm doing too, and that are fully finished actually too. But anyway, I'm halfway finished this fairy tale that I'm doing, and that I'll never do it as a musical comic. It's just a comic to read on paper. Anyway, but let's talk about Jesus Laughs in Galilee. Maybe I just described how I came out with the title instead of how I wrote it, but it is I wanted to write something cool, something but this is like the most uncool story maybe like I could possibly ever write. But I just write what comes to me, and in some way I can't control it, and so I can control what the title is. But now I'm writing a story that's like I guess it's going to be really super Christian. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what's going to happen next. Like I'm gripped to my seat to what's going to happen next. So I'll do this one, and hopefully the next one will be something that is commercial. Maybe like it'd be neat to do something commercial, but I have no control. I just do what comes out. Okay, and this could very well turn out to be a kid's story. I don't want it to be really, but it comes out. What comes out is what comes out. That's it. That's all. And like I could change it. I could control it more, but then it turns into advertising. Then that's kind of what I'm railing against, the whole corporate idea of creation. Well, I put this aside a bit, and the observant listener will have detected a certain apprehension in my manner, and something lurking under. There's some sort of amount of why can't I get a cool story, oh muse? Why can't I get something that could get some clicks? That would be nice, but I guess that's not enough of a motivating factor for me, because I want to do something true. And it's if it's true, I ask God, what's up? Though still, I want to do something that can pay a bill, right? I don't even know what's happening, what's going on. I'm in this story with like these two babies. They turn out to be babies. I didn't know they were babies until I started going on a certain distance, and then I realized, oh, these are babies. Oh my gosh. And I keep on getting these sort of surprises with the story that it's like, oh my gosh, it has to be this. I was thrown back. I was presented more clearly that I don't know what's happening. Not that I don't know what's happening. I mean, that I do know what's happening. That I didn't piece it together, but I did know. And that's what we do with things in life. Like writing a story is a lot like life. You look at the detail, and then you move back and you realize, oh, I knew all that. Only when you move back. I love my stories. Sometimes I haven't sounded like I'm sure if I'm in control, but I realize I am, and I know what's going on, but I get lost in the process. And it occurs to me that's how Jesus felt. I mean, when we create art, we're doing something that's strangely holy, and that's something that's lost on us in our culture. It's strangely holy. Okay, knowing what happens when you're creating a piece of art, you know what happens, but you make yourself so absorbed in making it and doing it. And Jesus became absorbed in this life, that in his own creation, that he became a human character inside of his creation, inside of time itself, another creation of his. the writing process is weird in this similar way. You're leaping into your own creation and limiting yourself into what the parameters of your own creation. I know what happens and the threads, but I voluntarily detach myself from the memory of the story so I could write it anew and surprise myself. The big thing I realize is that well, the boy's not named Jehu. I keep saying Jehu, and I say Jehu and Jehu, and I can't say the name properly. If I can't say the name properly, maybe that's not the right name, right? I don't even understand the name. I've never known a Jehu or a Jehu, and I say it differently every time, but one thing I know about the character is that this is Martha, and it's my imagining of Martha. So this has to be Lazarus. I wasn't convinced I had a cool story. It's a good one, though. It's beautiful, but it's really Christian. And it's funny, I'll listen to Christian commentators and they'll be saying, we don't even want Christian stories. We just want stories that are not Christian, like not against Christianity. And it's like, well, this is really Christian. This is like too Christian for Christians. But I'm not trying to evangelize. There's nothing like that. It's just what was in my imagination and what came out. And that's the funny thing, is because I write like dreams, okay? Like when you dream, you don't control it unless you're into the lucid dreaming thing. Some people are into lucid dreaming. In a way, that's what writing is like lucid, but it's not, because you let it take over. And this is what came out. This is what it is. And that's where this weird feeling that artists have struggled with this feeling for a long time, and they at certain points they say, like I said, did I say earlier for this or another video that like Botticelli and other artists like that too, they would tell you that no, God is actually drawing. Like when I'm drawing, and just like they didn't use the word channel, but it's like that kind of thing. That's what they thought, and because excuse me, because you get so wrapped up in the experience, and it's a mystical experience. Creating art, it's a mystical experience. Why? Because the imagination is the domain of all spirituality. The non-imaginative parts, like following the rules and stuff like that, that's all cool and everything that, but you could logically, argue that God exists, but that's not the same as knowing through the imagination. It's the mystical realm. It feels like it's given to you when you have it, and it's there because you don't know. It's like a dream. Is a dream given to you, or did you create the dream? You never know, and sometimes you don't know, and sometimes you did create it, and sometimes you didn't. I have a video coming up where I'll show you I did not create this dream. This dream was real, and I pulled something out of that world to show you. Okay, and I can't prove it, but. I didn't pull like a three-dimensional object. That sounds like a pretty cool, like Freddy Krueger story, kind of cool. But no. It the prophetic thing. Anyway, the story's imagined, and I feel like I'm transcribing something that exists in the imagination. If it doesn't exist, it's because my imagination somehow tricks me that it's real, and I'm just transcribing it. That creates the muse feeling. That's what the muse feeling is. Our society is so unacquainted with just this normal feeling of creativity. I think that it would be a universal feeling, okay? And it's called the muse, because it feels like you feel like it is something. You feel like it's something more than you. It feels like a mystical experience, okay? And on the other side too, you could say that someone is channeling demons, right? I'm not channeling, like how would a demon channel like a story of Jesus? And it's just like when Jesus was accused for like channeling demons. It's like why would he be building the Lord's house anyway? The psychological feeling of the muse guiding the hand is either real or it's an illusion, and all faith is either real or it's an illusion. Okay, so it's the same. You're in the same question. Okay, am I doing some mystical act? Who knows? It feels like it. So maybe if in this mystical act I'm coming out with some religious kind of story, I just want it to be like a touching and exciting adventure story. That's all I really want. I just want people to have a state of wonder and enchantment for a little while, but it's coming out it's coming out like this anyway. I don't mean like that. I don't mean to denigrate writing that is like written that doesn't just come out to you like a dream. Like the skilled copywriter. Everything is written. Everything in our world is written. I don't like a TV show. If you're doing a TV show, like you're creating them. Like say if they said, hey, I want you to create you have to do the next episode of this. I would have to study the characters and do it. And I can't just say, well, it's going to dream out. So this is like a different type of thing than what you get everywhere else in a certain way. And I think the way I'm doing it is the way it used to always be done. That's why they talk about the muse in the old days, and because it's I think I'm doing something ancient. And the fact that we look at the muse, we talk of the muse as as just some pretty woman that inspires someone. It's so materialistic. It's so not spiritual and not psychological. It's just it's such a misunderstanding that really tells you what this age is all about. Okay, this is an anti-creative age. Don't let anybody tell you that it isn't. Okay, and this is what when you know it's an anti-creative age, then you compensate. That's the thing. That's why I'm saying that. I'm not saying that to complain. I'm saying that just so we could say, hey, don't look at the world of dreams as something you don't need. Okay, everybody needs their dream time during day. When it just comes out of nowhere, it's a weird mystery. When you're just sitting around and you just get a thought, and am I pulling it out of somewhere? Or am I creating? Did I create that thought? If I step into one of my stories, I stop into a world that I created. Is that helpful? Like in understanding Jesus? Because that's kind of like, I think that leads into the way I understand Jesus. He stepped into his creation. And that's the awesome thing about it. We say three-dimensional world, right? I'm in a three-dimensional world. If I put myself into my own story, it's a lesser creation than reality that I live in. Like our earth creation, living as a human is much lesser reality than being God, like in the cosmos, right? It's a condescension. That's the thing, that the word condescension. I think it's like a theological, well, this is a theological, everybody uses it, but nowadays, that's another thing about our age. That's another, this is another sign of the age. And when you say condescending, he was so condescending. He was condescending me. It's considered a bad thing, but Jesus condescended, and that's a good thing. Okay, it's like when a writer or a creator of art condescends into their art. Like you're lowering yourself to be part of it. You're putting your soul into the work then, right? I imagine God has all sorts of other planets in the cosmos. Restricting himself to one location is a condensation. A condensation, a condescension. It's one of those words that are kind of trip you up. If you might make it into the evaporation process. Is this a cosmic pattern though? That's the thing. I like when you create art, like you're doing something that we haven't been creating art. Like we for thousands of years we've been creating art like only like the very elites or people like for churches or for like some sort of king or something like that. That's for kings or churches. Like it's a spirituality. Like the kings wanted, and decoration in the Roman days, like it was like the very rich, they would have it up, and but it was the very rich, right? And art was art was spiritual. It was always something that was more. And then the secularization of the world made it so that art is ignored. And that's the whole thing. Art is taking something to the soul, and so art is ignored right now, and we're ignoring our souls. And if you ask a lot of people, like, do you believe in the soul? It's a scary thing when someone says, I don't know. That's a really scary thing. Okay? This story is like one of my children, that, you know, it is what it is. It's born the way it is, and I raise it the way it is, not the way I want it to be. Well, the way I want it to be too, but yeah. Anyway, like you just have to have that experience to back away from the details and see the beauty of the whole. And that's what I did with this. I wasn't really happy with it at first, because it was, well, I was happy. I was totally happy, but it just, oh my gosh, like, am I ever going to get, like, some people following my stories? That would be nice, but, no, just whatever. Do it for the angels. It'd be neat to go along with the algorithm of our culture, but what is that? Everything is getting flattened. I don't want to be part of that flattening. I don't want to be flattened. I'd rather just sit away from the tunnel. I'll defy the algorithms, the haters, the conformists, and technology's influence of mediocrity, and technology always trying to get the art to be technology. And if people won't listen, like I say, I'll do it for the angels. And I'll do my story the best I can do it, to the best of my ability. And hopefully, dear listener, anybody that has made it this far, I can congratulate. You see, it's hard for me. You know, this is like already this long. I can't even say the word congratulate. See, I congratulate you. Welcome to my newest continuing story, Jesus Laughs in Galilee. Check out the links below, and I have more books on the way too.